All right, everybody, and welcome to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Drive safe, Dave here with you, with a special guest, Chris Jolly, the host, the star, I don't know how you want to go about it, but the man of the freight coach. What's going on, Chris?
Oh, not too much, man. Chris is perfectly fine. I appreciate you guys having me on here today, though. Thank you for that.
No, it's a pleasure to have you. Look, just so you know, we're doing a little bit different format today. It's going to be kind of a personal interview with me and you. I don't know if you've seen our show before, but it's going to kind of be me and you having a conversation today out here, because I got a lot to ask you. I'll tell you, I've been doing this for about 3 years, this type of deal going on over here at BCB Live, and it has progressed from just a small podcast to now like this video podcast. I mean, this video cast, or whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, it was great. I had a great face for radio, and it was good. And then they put you like, you know what I'm saying? They put you like on TV, and then all of a sudden, bam! My wife's like, "Your hair's messy." And, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, man, absolutely. I know exactly what you're saying. I started a couple of years back on my broken laptop and my broken folding table in my bedroom. So I know what you mean, man. It's wild what happens when you just stick to something for a couple of years.
Yeah, you actually get an opportunity to figure out just how to fill space up with your voice, because the first couple, there was a lot of, dead air time, or weird airtime, or I'm not even sure what you would call it, but it was very uncomfortable in the beginning, because me and my other co-hosts, we would stare at each other like, is it your turn? Is it my turn? Or what have you. But, all right, so this is obviously about trucking originally. I mean, that's what we do here. We focus on safety in trucking over here, Chris. That's what BCB stands for, be safe. Communicating, if you can, be on time. That's the premise behind it, the ideology behind it, that it's a little bit different. But, just that everything that's safety must come first. So that's what we do over here, and that's kind of what we discuss. But we also, on the show, bring in other people to talk about the industry or talk about what it is they do. And I think yours is a very different and a cool story, because there's a lot of podcasters out there, right? It's becoming quite the thing, because like you said, all it takes is what? A broken laptop and a willingness to just jab, right?
Absolutely. No, it definitely is. And starting out in doing it, I mean, I know it was a couple months in before I actually got my first podcast starter kit off of Amazon, so I think all in it was only $200. So
yeah, you got the cool speaker and the headphones, and then you go, and now all of that equipment's in a box somewhere, right? Because I
upgraded exponentially from where I was to where I am right now.
It doesn't take long, buddy. You know what? It just starts growing on you and growing. It's like a bad weed. It just spreads all over the yard, and pretty soon, if you're not, that's what happens. I mean, we got cameras and rotating cameras here, and we got touch screens and virtual studio coming. We're building a virtual studio. It's all getting to be crazy, and it's almost like a disease. I promise you, it's getting crazy. So let's talk about you first of all, Chris. Let's get right into it, because I think it's an interesting story. Tell us a little bit about you in the industry of trucking to begin with.
Yeah, so I come from a deep history in the industry. My great-grandparents started a trucking company back in Iowa in the 1930s when they immigrated here from Germany. And they did that, and then they ended up moving up to the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and that's where my old man, my dad, got into driving. So he got in as soon as he got out of the Army. He started a trucking company back then in the 70s, and he drove for almost 40 years. And I just everybody I know in my family was a truck driver. Uncles, my grandfather on my mother's side was a dispatcher, and all of that stuff. So it's just I come from the industry, and I have a deep respect for what this industry actually does. And I got in personally. I've been in it for 15 years now. So
yeah, and you know what? I don't have quite the pedigree of the from the truck driver. Been in the industry a long time as well, 30 years. I don't have the historical pedigree that you do. But I'll tell you. So So you've been around, and you've been doing it. And did you work for a trucking company? You work for 3PL? What did you do? What is your area of expertise that you did in the industry to begin with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out loading trucks in college. So I worked at a distribution center for 4 years because they had second shift. It paid the most money. And so that's how I got into it. And then growing up, I always wanted to drive. Like that was ever since I was a little kid. That was the one job my dad told me that I couldn't do, though. He was like, if you're going to be the best, if you're going to do anything, be the absolute best at it. And he just never wanted me behind the wheel. And he just always told me it's not the life that I want for you. So I always wanted to work in the industry. So I started out loading trucks, and then I got a job at a trucking company for a little bit before because I grew up in northern Wisconsin. And then I moved out to Reno, Nevada when this is a little over 10 years ago, about 12 years ago, excuse me, at this point. And I got a job as a broker. So that's like the bulk of my experience in the industry. And I started out doing that. I worked in carrier sales, customer sales, leadership. I've done all of that. I worked for one of the largest freight brokers in North America. I worked for a pure startup. And then a couple of years ago at the beginning of the pandemic, I was just at a point in my career where it was like I kind of felt like I had accomplished everything I could as a broker, and I wanted to just try something new because that was my only experience. And my plan at the time was I was going to go work on the trucking company side of things. I was going to learn assets for 5 to 7 years, and I was going to make a C-suite play one day. And so I resigned from my job on a Monday because I had a bunch of interviews lined up. And by Thursday, we all know what happened in 2020. So I was out of a job. All the interviews went away seemingly overnight. So I was there, just moved to Arizona with my wife and my son. And I was like, all right, well, what are we going to do here? So that's when I started to get involved on social media, because I was like, all right, I got to be candidate number one literally everywhere when people start hiring.
Right, exactly.
And from a content perspective, though, that's when I just realized how much garbage was out there. Because I'm like, you guys are making it sound too easy. And it was like, and B, I'm like, well, maybe I was just terrible at my job. So I'm just going to start talking about my experiences in the industry. And I only saw a bunch of chest thumping, this is why we're better than you content. And I'm like, well, what do you do if there's like a damaged product? Or like, what do you do if a driver like takes out a fence at a shipper and stuff like that? All the stuff that I've experienced. Or what happens when you get a truckload stolen, like I've had happen in my life. So I just started talking about that. And that's like, just like with anything, I became overnight sensation, which is a lie. I'm being completely sarcastic. Nobody was engaging on any of my stuff, and it was about 30 days into creating content, and I had specialized in open deck and heavy haul as a broker. And I put some content out there for that. And I had a really large broker reach out to me at the time. And they're like, hey, can you talk to one of our sales reps about this? Because we want to offer this as a service, but nobody in our company has ever done an RGM load before. So I was like, yeah, absolutely, thinking maybe they'll just hire me. And long story short, they didn't hire me, thankfully. But like that's what really lit the fire under me from a content perspective. That's what got me starting my podcast out, because I had been doing sales training for the last couple of years because I needed to put food on my family's table. So I started a business, and then I have since transitioned back into owning a freight brokerage. So I started a freight brokerage here a couple of months back, Freight Coach Logistics, and that's what we're doing now on top of the content that I put out every single day.
So in other words, you're still willing to make some of these lessons you're willing to talk about. You're still willing to learn some more of the hard mistakes and the hard times out there by continuing to be a freight broker out there on the road, because it's never ending, right? This whole thing is just ever changing, and no matter how hard we try, it just keeps going and going and going, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I love it though. Like I'm addicted to that. Like to be honest with you, I love the uncertainty of all of this stuff, like for the people out there who are in business who are like, oh, I just want it to be easy. You might want to just go get a 9-to-5 at a bank somewhere, or you can look at a spreadsheet all day. That's
absolutely.
Not at all.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've been in the business a long time. What you really do is put out fires all day that are just crazy everywhere, and that's what you do. You just put out fires, and they're different every day. They're similar, but they're different every day, and it's a and it's crazy. I do like that. So, when did you think of this and go, you know what? I'm going to make sure that Freight Coach is the answer out here on the web for many things. When did it just click for you?
Man, it was probably a little over a year into creating content every single day.
Right.
And creating, I had my podcast up and running at that time. I was doing 2 weekly interviews. I was creating content. And it was, by the time I got my first advertiser, I was just like, oh, okay, well, maybe we got something here. And then to be completely fully transparent, it was dang near 20 months in to creating this stuff every single day before I actually felt like I had a quote unquote following, if you will. And I don't like using those terms at all, because like I just know a lot of what not to do out there, and I want to put best practices out there for people, and I want to highlight what other industry experts are doing to keep people in business. Because I think like if you want negativity, just pull up the internet. Yeah, you can find all the negativity in the world, all the reasons why you shouldn't be in business. But it's like, what about all those hardworking men and women out there who literally have everything on the line like I do? And why don't we put information out there to keep people in business, to put the right information out there to where it's not behind a paywall? Because like everybody's got a course about everything at this point in time, but it's like, how do we align people with the right information where it is, if they are going to have a mentor or some form of business coach that they're working with, that it's the right person who's actually done the job before?
I agree with you totally. And the reason I think it's important is because, let's be honest, the brokerage division hasn't always been the heroes in the trucking world, right? I mean, if you want to talk to any driver, any shipper, any receiver, I'm just saying, right? Are we on this? We're kind of on the same page, right? We're 100% on the page, but in honestly, I was just going to say, it's 100% necessary though. So I mean, and this industry couldn't run without it.
It's a lot of what brokers are up against is self-inflicted, man. And again, like I never put myself on a pedestal and say like I've never done any of the shady stuff. I've never done any of that.
Sure.
Because I've been kicked in the teeth with reality enough, man, to understand. All right, I'm done playing the games. I'm done with the BS. I'm done with all of that.
Right.
I'm going to operate in the only way that I know, and it's brutal transparency. Good, bad, or indifferent. I'm going to let people know what's going on with their freight. And I think that if you change your perspective on things, as a broker, it's not as challenging as you think. Like there are so many carriers out there that want a quality broker to help them and work with them and partner with them. Just like there are a lot of quality shippers out there that want a quality broker. Like not one of us wants to hire somebody and get subpar service from them. So it's like if you're gonna give subpar service, you're gonna get subpar results from that. And I think that if you actually want to build up a solid carrier, because like my goal in my brokerage is I want to be a broker of choice to carriers, because in my perspective, if I'm a broker of choice to carriers, I'm going to become inevitably a broker of choice to customers at that point. Because last time I checked as a broker, I might be wrong on this, I don't have a business unless I have trucks to show up. So just throwing that out there.
And it's kind of a, and I've always put in the business, because I've been out of the truck for a while, about 10 years. And been working in the office. And I've always put it on the same pedestal, that, okay, so I got drivers and trucks, and then I got customers. And those are on a kind of the even keel, and then I got this arrow that points down at the bottom of the fulcrum, and it's me, right? I work for both of them, and they're that important on both sides to get those things together, or I'm not going to get it done. And it doesn't matter if you're and let me just tell you, it doesn't matter if you're an asset-based carrier or if you're a broker. You need both of those parties. You're putting both of those parties together to pick up the freight and move it.
1A and 1B of importance. I say it all the time. Carriers and customers as a broker.
That's it. And you're last. And unfortunately, you got to put them first. And no matter what the way, I'll tell you, here in the industry, and I was talking to a couple of driver buddies of mine, they're owner operators, and we were talking, and they were like, oh, I wish this industry didn't have all the brokers that they had. And I said, wait a minute. You understand the market is completely controlled. Almost the entire market, the way we view it, and the way is what the brokers are doing out there on the market, truly, with carriers. Because your asset-based carriers with customers, they're not really controlling the market. They're basically already doing what they got their contracted rates. So the market is actually controlled by the brokers and the carriers out there, correct?
I mean, for the most part, but I would say a lot of large asset providers have brokerages as well underneath their umbrella. So it's like everybody's but to your point though, I mean that is true. But if you ask any driver out there, what would you do for a quality broker who gave you the right information, who vouched for you when there was delays, who actually communicated with you as opposed to telling you this is what you're going to do, driver? I think the perspectives would start to change a little bit because, again, it's like as a service provider, because that's what brokers are. And I think a lot of them miss the mark. I am a service provider, right? And I need to provide service to my customers, which are also my carriers. I don't care that I pay the carrier. That's irrelevant because I have that they are my service provider. They are the ones who are showing up and doing that. I want to pay them to keep them in business. And that's where it is. It's a mutually beneficial partnership that is lost on a lot of people. And again, I'm not immune to some of this behavior early on in my career. I have learned the hard way. And what happens is I think now that I've been self-employed for these last couple of years, I understand the value of a customer. I understand how hard it is to build an actual business because I didn't have a direct deposit coming through every 2 weeks.
Correct.
So it doesn't, to me, I have to do everything in my power to add value and earn that next shipment. That's my mentality. I have to earn that next shipment.
And I think it's hard to also understand how difficult these relationships are to build and to keep and maintain, because that's really what you're talking about. Partnerships out there, developing relationships that help you to create more business, because as long as I've been in this industry, relationships have been fundamental to the success of anybody in this business. And I mean across the board. I don't care what it is you're doing in the logistics business, you're pretty much going to have a solid relationship and a trusting relationship between who you work with.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's always the little things. Like, as a broker, I don't care what anybody says to this. Like, you're not going to change my opinion. We're all offering the exact same service, right? Like, at the end of the day, we're all offering the exact same service. We're all going after the same shippers. We're all going after the same carriers. But the fundamental difference is what separates the average from the elites out there is always going to be the little things. It's always going to be those little details where a driver never has to question if a load comes across and, hey, you told me it was 40,000 pounds, it's coming in at 43.5. The driver's going to instantly think, what else are you lying to me about? You know, because it's like if you're gonna look over those details, or you didn't even call the shipper or receiver and verify if it's an appointment time or if it was first come first served, like the laziness that's out there, man, is that like that's what's just so baffling to me. And it's like if you're going to build up a carrier base, a core carrier base as a broker, you have to be verifying, double checking, triple checking information, because it's not like the days of paper logs anymore, right? Like the driver clocks are down to the absolute second. And if we can uncover a couple of additional minutes of added added time back onto their clock, that gets them into a better parking spot. That gets them an extra 20, 30 miles down the road. That gets them closer. And that's all it takes is those little details. And then also, what's the last time as a broker you actually thank the driver for the hard work that they did for them? You know what? I would love to talk to drivers and be like, when's the last time a broker actually said thank you for the service that you provided to them?
No, and it happens. I mean, it happens. I mean, I've been out there, and it does happen. It happens a lot. You know, hey, great job. Appreciate the job you did. I mean, believe it or not, it does go on. It probably, but don't you think that should be more in our lives every day, not just between break. But shouldn't we be more appreciative of what let's be honest, that's like, I think that's systemic of some of the issues that we have in society today. We don't really appreciate a lot of what we do and what other people do for you.
100%, man. 100%. The blue collar worker as a whole is the most overlooked individual out there. The hardworking men and women of the blue collar industries that are out there. That's where it starts. It's just the same thing like just going down to your local gas station and saying thank you there, or your Walmart cashier, or any of that. That's where a lot of the fundamental issues in this country will get fixed, is when you bring that sense of community back in and appreciating what that individual is doing for you.
Yeah, because and here it is, in the industry and in business, I've come to learn that every job that we do here is so vitally important to the success of the overall picture. And it doesn't matter, the broker, the driver, the shipper, the dock worker, the forklift driver, the safety manager, they all have an incredible, none of these things are going to be able to get done without anybody doing their vital part. And I'll tell you what, when did we stop saying thank you, really, as a nation? When did moms and dads stop teaching their kids to say thank you? Because I'll tell you, and why, shame on me for forgetting to do it too. Because I can hear my grandmother right now telling me, make sure you say thank you. And whenever you do something. When did we really stop doing that in the industry and in the work and all this when we're doing this? Because I agree with you 100%. I think it helps develop a character, and I think it allows the other individual. Who doesn't want to feel appreciated?
Yeah. No, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. It probably stopped around the time that we stopped saying the Pledge of Allegiance in school. That's probably around the same time, to be honest with you.
I might be right up there with you, because I remember saying it.
I remember saying it.
Thank you. Let me ask you a question. What are some of the biggest challenges that you faced, and now that let's step away from your freight brokerage, and let's go into freight coach. Okay? Yep. Not the brokerage side. Because we could probably go on. I want to know, what are some of your genuine challenges that you face today to help build your podcast?
To be honest with you, it's always going to be me. I'm going to be my biggest challenge. I'm a firm believer in this. There's nothing that will stop me but me in life. God is the only thing that can stop me. But nothing out there will stop me from achieving my goals but me. So it's like when I wake up and I don't want to do certain things, it's like I gotta, the discipline developed is what is going to keep this going. So it's like a lot of the challenges that I face, are, again, people's schedules changing. So it used to beat me up a lot when somebody would reschedule. Now I'm like, all right, I completely understand. At least they gave me ample notice and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So I don't really view it as like a big challenge, but it's more of like the mental battle of a lot of stuff, it's continuously showing up and not paying attention to the vanity metrics. It's if one episode gets 10,000 downloads and then the next one gets 500, I don't look in the mirror and be like, oh my gosh, the sky's falling. It's like, all right, I'm going to show up. I just got to show up tomorrow. And that's it.
I need another 10,000, right? I need another good one. I got to put more. I got to make sure the next one is. I get it. Some days I can easily talk to somebody, and some days I'm sitting here and I don't even remember the question I just asked the person. I just talked to. And I don't know if that's just old age, Chris. I don't know if that's just old age or if that's what you're trying to get over the challenges and trying to move on and do better. Where are you headed with this? We all have goals, and we all have. Where are you really headed with the freight coach, and what do you intend on doing with it? I know you want to do great. I know you want to, but what's your mission statement?
The largest independent blue-collar media company that this world has ever seen, bringing appreciation back to the blue-collar worker. That's what I'm going to do. And it's going to create an education and value-based platform that people can just listen to the content and improve their business and life without you got to come sign up for this or you got to come buy that. To me, it's all a value exchange. And the more value you put out there, the more value you receive in return. And, frankly, being a blue-collar kid and growing up, having to get my first job when I was 12 years old, picking up trash, and back to that appreciation factor, what we were talking about earlier, that's what the long-term vision is for this.
To me, that seems a whole lot broader than what your name says.
Yeah.
It actually encompasses a whole lot of industries, not just freight, right? I mean, it's basically you're reaching cross boundaries here to try to find and get your message across to many peoples, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. It's because it doesn't matter if it's in freight or if it's in sanitation or welders or steel workers or farmers or whatever it looks like. To me, freight's a part of it all. It's some way, shape, or form. Freight's a part of it. So if there's anything that by a stroke of dumb luck I called myself one day because I didn't want to call myself the CEO of a broken laptop. That's why I came up with the Freight Coach. I got to give myself credit for that one because a broken clock is right twice a day at least. So.
Let me ask you a question, and I know you've had a lot of downloads. I know you've had a lot of success. When did you realize you were onto something? I know we talk about this, but is there a magic bullet that you found that you feel like you did better with one day and then it just kept working, or was it just something you had to develop the tradecraft over time? Because to me, I think it's the latter. I think you learned after, and it's just a trade craft you develop like you do anything else. You play the piano enough, you get practice, you'll actually get better at it. Is that kind of how you feel like you got here?
Yep. I think that's exactly what it is. It's just showing up, and it's really just keeping the blinders on in a sense of I just need to focus on me. Like I love seeing other content creators coming out. I love seeing other shows, and I want to support everybody that I possibly can with all of the work that they're doing because I know how hard it is. But one thing it is the understanding that you have to do more. Like nobody is great the first time they do anything, and you have to be open to the fact that you suck. All right, like I was just like with you talking about earlier, man. Like that's why I leave all my early stuff up. I have never taken any of my early episodes or any of my early content down off of my social media because if anybody falls on my stuff today, I want them to be able to go back and be like, he was terrible 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Some people might think I'm still terrible, but I don't care.
No, I like it. Let me ask you, how much of this is really Chris on the show and outside of the show? I mean, like, okay, so I'm just going to tell you, outside of the show, I'm really loud and obnoxious normally. I mean, that's me. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this is because I was already that. But how much of it is really you, and how much of it do you turn on when you get on the show?
It's me 100% of the time. The only difference between me being on your show and my show is I'm working really hard not to curse right now because
please. I'm good. I would get it. Me and you are, I get it. But
I was raised better than that. Like if I'm in somebody else's house, I got to clean up the language a little bit.
Right, exactly.
So that's the only difference that you could really see out there. But I would say naturally I'm an introvert. Like when it boils down to it, I've developed a lot of this because ever since I was a kid, I always liked talking to people. I was super, super shy. But I understand the value of effective communication. So if I'm the same person, whether I'm doing this or at my house, I'm just more quiet at home because I talk all day. So it's I kind of like to quiet when I'm away from it.
Jake, tune down just a little bit. But like on a normal business day, if you're not behind the camera, you're still Chris like you are right now. You're just doing Chris stuff. And that's how this bleeds over, because here in my notes it says you truly believe that people will sniff out if you're not for real they'll just see at some point you can't hide you, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the biggest compliment you could say I've ever received is when I do meet people at conferences and stuff like that, and when they do say, man, you're the exact same person. That is my biggest compliment.
It is cool. Yeah, I've done the same thing, and they also say, yeah, you're a little, you're a little more overweight than I. You're actually a little heavier than I thought you were, and I'm like, well, we've got some cool cameras.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Let me ask you, how often do you get that question that that you're ready, that really makes, you know what, I got to do a show about this question, or that's the question I really got to go over? I mean, when do you feel like, when you get those, I mean, we could sit here and I could think about all that stuff as we pass, but every now and then I get somebody that comes to me and just says something, and I'm like, oh man, I'm on that. You know what? We have to talk about that.
All the time. To be honest with you, like I just in talking with as many people that I do, it'll always like trigger a memory and be like, oh, that'd be a good content piece. Oh, that'd be a good podcast episode. Like I have like a notepad in front of me of like stuff I just jot down throughout. I'm like, oh, I got to talk about that one day. I got to talk about that another day. Yeah.
Isn't it true? In fact, it just doesn't turn off. Like, yeah. I mean, that's why I was leading into you really. You start doing this a while, and you know what? You start looking, and it finds you. The content seems to find you, and you don't have to search for it as hard.
After a while, yeah. Early on, it was not this way, but now you develop that skill set of like, all right, cool. I'm gonna talk about this. You build your own content calendar up. And yeah, earlier on, it was more challenging, but now I'm like every 5 seconds, like I have shiny object syndrome, man. I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk about that.
Squirrel, squirrel. Look, I'm just going to ask you right off the bat, if you had any advice, like talking you can't say don't do it. You can't say, hey, don't try. It's a tough road. Don't go there. What I do want you to do is say, you know what? A few things I would like what would you have liked somebody have told you a couple of years ago that might help you have been a little better?
Stop paying attention to what other people have to say.
Wow.
Don't take anything because anybody else's opinion is irrelevant. I think, fortunately, I haven't had a lot of pushback. I mean, I get it some, but like I don't care. Like honestly, your opinion of me is not my problem. And my thing is for anybody out there that's gonna do it, just the hardest part is always starting, and just do not pay attention. Do not pay attention to what anybody else is telling you. If you want it as bad as you tell yourself you do, it will come eventually. It's not gonna happen as soon as you want it to. It's gonna be very lonely at times. But if you want it as bad as you do, just keep pushing through. I will be cheering from you from afar because I know how hard it is to show up every single day. And if you consistently do it in time, it will come.
What's your biggest reward so far in this? I mean, honestly, we've talked about goals and stuff, but where are you good at with this right now, and and now from where you were to where you are now, what part of you? I know you're going to want more. I know you're going to want, but what part of you right now says, yeah, this is working for me?
The message I got from somebody this morning who said, your video this morning changed my perspective on things, and I'm going to go after what I have been telling myself to. Those messages like that are really what keeps me going through a lot of this stuff. Like when it really boils down to it, it's the comments, the DMs from the people that I get that won't comment on my posts, but they feel comfortable enough to tell me like, hey, I felt that emotion before. And that's why I'm so open about like the struggles of everything, of sales and like the anxiety of building a business and everything. Like I put it all out there because I know I'm not the only one who feels that way.
Absolutely.
And if I'm the one that says it and it keeps somebody else going out there, whether they engage with my stuff or not, that's what it's about to me at the end of the day. It's what value can we put out there in the world for people and expect nothing in return, because I'll figure it out no matter what.
Let me ask you, it is leading into this. How is it that you developed some of this vulnerability about yourself to letting people see it? You've obviously made yourself a little vulnerable about your feelings, about what you see, and that's not something you just do normally, right? I mean, you've actually developed this over time.
Yeah, I think that for me, I would rather. I told myself when I went into business for myself, I was going to unapologetically be me. I do not care.
I'm writing that down today because I'm going to tell my boss that tomorrow.
But I'm going to unapologetically be myself. I'm going to talk about, because I always feel like this, like there's going to be two stories told about you. Is it going to be the one that you're going to tell, or is there going to be the made up one that somebody else is going to tell? And then you're going to spend more time defending a version of yourself that you're not?
Right.
Or would it just be easier to come out and say the things that you say? And I that's just my approach with things, is it's like, I'm going to say what is on my mind. I'm going to say my feelings, and I'm just going to be open about it, because it's a lot easier for me to tell my truth than to try and defend a version of me that somebody else is going to come up with. And I would rather just keep it how it is. I mean, that's how I was raised. That's how my dad was. My dad was a very much a straight shooter. He did not hold anything back at all. And that's just the approach that I'm going to take. And, you know, I had a version of myself that I was living for a long time that I was disgusted with. I wasn't me. I wasn't myself. I was putting on a facade and trying to be something that I wasn't. And I sleep a hell of a lot better at night now, just being unapologetically Chris.
You know, if anybody wants to listen to you, the Freight Coach, how do they go about doing this? Obviously, you have a podcast. Just kind of give us a rundown, to our listeners and our drivers and everybody out there that listens on our show. How would they get to the Freight Coach?
Yeah, absolutely. My podcast is on iTunes and Spotify. It's called Coffee with the Freight Coach, and I do my weekday live show on there, as well as my twice a week long form podcast. I'm also on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Everything social media is the Freight Coach. You can find me on there. It's very simple, and you won't be able to miss me because I got a blaze orange polo on and a backwards hat on in every video. So.
Yeah. Is that your success look? Is that the branding? Because I need a branding. I got it. I need a branding.
How else do I stand out in a crowd of 800 people who are seemingly just like me in the same blue blazer and everything else, man? Blaze orange polo.
I have a different sign on my shirt every day. So there. I'll tell you what, man, I appreciate you coming on, talking to us, and let us a little know about you and what you do out there and how important it is. That your mission, you know, of what you got going out there to be the largest, let me get it right, the largest media for the blue collar worker. Is that correct?
That's right.
No, I like it. That's a hell of a dream, but it is a good one. I like it. I think that voice is important to be heard.
Yeah, it'll be a reality. The only difference is between where I'm at in my head and is going to be the time it's going to take me to get there. It'll be a reality. It's a dream for some, but it's a reality for me. So
nice. I appreciate that. Hey, before you go, I just want to tell you, I want to thank you for being on here. Would love to have you on again soon at some point, whenever you get a chance. But before you go, we always ask every one of our guests to say your name, who you're with, and that you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Can you do that?
All right. My name is Chris Jolly, a.k.a. the Freight Coach. I'm with Freight Coach Logistics. We are with BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
Hey, man, I do appreciate it. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye. All right, that's Chris over there at the Freight Coach. Let me tell you, that fantastic, cool, funny guy. Definitely will tell you like it is. And you know what? Got to get over there and listen to some of the things that he's talking about in the industry. That way, you can hear some of the pitfalls, some of the real way in which brokers think, brokers act, and what they should be doing out there to get better business. So do yourself a favor, get on the Freight Coach, and let's do this. We're going to go ahead and close it in for today, and I'll tell you what, everybody, have a great, wonderful, and safe day. And remember, you're watching us here on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Bye, everybody.